So what we're going to want to do is bring our image in, and then we're going to want to take that image and make it into a vector object by using what's called image trace. So the first thing you're going to do is you want to place your photograph inside the space, your kind of large canvas here. So I'm going to click on the image that I want to bring in. One of the things I want you to note, please link that. So using Illustrator, if we're linking to it, you're not going to actually do anything to the original image. You can't damage it in any way. So this way, we're just basically saying we're referencing that original object that exists. It also means that your Illustrator file is going to be very small, which is very useful. But it does mean you need to remember to keep that original image available to Illustrator so it can reference it. So I'm going to place that image, and you're going to get this little icon you see here. That is the kind of generic Adobe Place Object icon. So place that there, and I can move the object around. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so that I can see both of my icons. And this is generic to all Adobe things. Command and minus will always zoom you out. Command and plus will always zoom you in. And that's true of all Adobe products. So now that I can see the whole thing, I want to go over to properties. One of the great changes in the current versions of Illustrator as compared to older ones is that properties is constantly going to be updating to tell us what it thinks I might want to do. And it's really useful because it saves you searching and trying to remember where every single tool lives. Since we've placed a JPEG, it thinks that we might want to do an image trace, and it's right. So I'm going to click on the image trace quick action, and it's going to give you some defaults. Now we want to make a black and white logo, and I can change the colors later on, but this way I know I'm only going to use 2 colors, and because you only have the option of having 2 colors in your final. So that way we know we're going to end up with the colors we want. Now it's going to tell me that it might take a while, and that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to click OK. It really won't take that long. As you can see here, it's already done. Now I want to play around a little bit with the settings, because you can see here I've got this weird bar from where my pad of paper was thingied over, and I got a little bit of extra stuff. So click on this right here. It says Open Image Trace Panel. You can click on that and it'll open up. So in here, yours will probably show up with the advanced arrow dialed up. It's kind of the standard. Now I've used this, so I want to see what's advanced, so I'm going to show that. But we're going to kind of do the rough thing first and then fine tune. So the first thing we want to look at is our threshold. So as you can see, it's going to give you a tooltip about things that are past the threshold are converted to black. So let's just see what happens when we go all the way. Oops, that's too much. Clearly it's turning things black. And as you can see, it's in real time previewing it for me because I have this preview box checked. It's really useful to keep that preview box checked. So I don't want to see all the grid lines. That was part of the reason I did this on grid paper. So okay, I know I want less. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to remember 86. Let's just see what happens if I keep going. It's starting to break up down here. And if I keep going, it's going to be all white. So I remembered 86 was good. So I'm going to put in 86 again. Have it go there. Hit tab to have that take. Okay, I like 86. We can play a little bit in terms of, do you want more paths or fewer paths? You can see how that changes things a little bit down here in that bottom corner. We have more paths. It's a little bit more jaggy. Fewer paths might, kind of smooth things out a little bit. Again, you can play with more corners, fewer corners. Again, I'm trying to make it pretty simple looking because you don't want a ton of extra points that you're going to have to clean up later. But you don't want it so low that you lose definition in what you're working on. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Okay, I'm happy with this. So this hasn't taken yet. It hasn't actually converted it. Before you hit this box here that says expand. Before you hit expand, it's basically just keeping track of what you want to apply to it. So it's just keeping a list of these are the values you have. You need to hit expand in order to make it take those values and actually put them onto the image. So at this point, it's still referencing the original image and it's still linked to that image. So until you hit expand, if you deleted your JPEG, Illustrator wouldn't know what to do. It would go, the data I'm referencing is gone. Once you hit expand, you've kind of divorced it from that original file. You haven't done anything to that JPEG, so you still have the original. You could start all over again if you wanted to. And it's going to make that self-contained. It's going to make it a vector. And a vector is an image that can be scalable. So it's all math. Everything in it about it is math. So when you hand yours into me, you need to have hit expand. If you haven't hit expand, you have not made a vector object. So I'm going to click expand, and you'll notice that there's no big X across that image anymore. That big X is reminding me that it's still referencing the original JPEG. So now this lives all on its own inside of Illustrator, and it's all just math. So you'll notice that there's a little bit like there's outlining in blue. If I zoom in here, again, Command and plus zooms in, and you can see all these little points have now appeared. And those are all our points that are defining our shape inside of Illustrator. So I want to get rid of that white background. That's first. And then I'm going to want to put each of those mountains inside one of our little squares here. And then I'm going to kind of clean them up a little bit. So as you can see, it wants to move this all as one big block. That's because it's a group. Now I'm going to go ahead and close my image trace window. I don't need it. I've done my image trace. Now again, properties is going to give you some things that it thinks you might want. One of which is ungroup. And handily enough, I do in fact want to ungroup. So now everything here has been separated out into its component shape. So I can just click on that white background and hit delete, and it's gone. Okay, well now I want to move this mountain. Well, you'll notice as I've clicked right here, it's showing you part of the mountain. It's that particular element. So each of these elements are now divorced from their group of this big mountain. So I'm going to edit, undo, move twice. I got to do it a couple more times because I moved it a couple times for you. So if I want to move both those black lines and those white shapes together, I'm going to click, drag, select. So just click in a corner and drag. You can see the little bounding boxes showing up. And when I let go, it'll snap around the objects that it's selected. So then you can go to your quick actions and hit group. Now I am going to end up getting rid of those white shapes, but not quite yet. I want to put these mountains inside that composition. So I'm going to grab the corner, and as you can see, if I grab the corner, I can scale it any which way I want. Now I don't want to do that because I don't want to squish my mountains. I drew them the way I wanted them. I'm going to edit, undo. If you hold down the Shift key, again, this is true of all of your Adobe products, while you're scaling, it will keep things in proportion. So now I've got my mountains in proportion inside that box. I want to do the same for these guys. And again, I want to keep that white with me. So I'm going to group them. I'm going to bring them up. I'm going to put it down below. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to scale them down and then move them where I want them to be. Now, the reason I kept the white is because I could decide to change that white to a different color. So you can use two colors. As I mentioned, I just did a quick zoom in there. You can use two colors. So I'm going to ungroup. So say I don't want black and white, but I want black and yellow. I can keep this shape here. And right now, the fill color is white, and there's no stroke on this object. Well, maybe I want that color to be, I said yellow. So I'm going to go over to my swatches over here. Got swatches, you've got a color guide, you've got color up here, but swatches is going to give you this little like generic color kind of to start you off. It's got a bunch of generic colors in here. So I want yellow. As you can see, that's made that yellow. If I had deleted the shape altogether, then I wouldn't have been able to color it in. So just to keep that in mind, you might want to keep those shapes if you're thinking of using two colors. Again, this guy, the fill is black. Well, maybe I want that to be red. So I can go in and recolor those shapes. And so that's the fill color of the shape that I'm changing. Now, this has got some little jaggy bits, as you can see down here. So the next thing we're going to look at is cleaning that up. But I'm going to do that in a separate video just so that you get used to doing this in first foremost. Again, when we look up at this guy's grouped, you can see because ungroup is an option. I'm going to ungroup it. Now maybe I want these mountains to stay, see, I forgot to deselect before I reselected the mountain peak. If, say, we were doing 3 colors, you could delete those guys because I want them to be the paper, and then these I want to be red, but my outline I want to be green. So then you can see this is the color of the background. We've got red and green. That's really crazy green. That's kind of making my eyes pop. So let's go with that green. They're kind of very Christmassy mountains. And I'll go for that. It's a little bit less hurting my eyes. Now you might say, how do I know that that's white? That's not white still behind there. You can always go in. We're going to look at drawing shapes a little bit later, but you could draw a shape, a rectangle, making that orange. And I'm going to tell that shape that I want it to be in the back. And you can see that there isn't anything, there's no fill at all in the area of those two mountain caps. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense.